James had been waiting in line at the bakery for what felt like an eternity. The smell of freshly baked bread and pastries wafted through the air, teasing him with their deliciousness. Finally, he approached the front of the queue and noticed a peculiar sign above the counter. "Please do not point at our products. It's rude." James raised an eyebrow and wondered if this was some sort of joke. He stepped forward and cleared his throat to get the attention of the shop assistant, a stern-looking woman with a pierced nose and a black apron. "I'll have a croissant, please," he said, pointing at the display case. The assistant gave him a disapproving look and said, "I'm afraid you can't point at our products, sir." James was taken aback. "Why not?" he asked, feeling a bit silly for having violated an unspoken rule. The assistant replied, "It's part of our policy to avoid confusion among our customers. We want them to have the best possible experience in our shop." James couldn't argue with that. He ordered his croissant anyway, and paid for it, feeling a bit annoyed at the unnecessary restriction. As he walked out of the bakery, he couldn't help but wonder if this was some sort of strange trend in the food industry. No pointing at pastries. It seemed a bit extreme, but hey, who was he to judge? The next day, James decided to investigate the reason behind the bakery's peculiar rule. He marched into the shop with a determined look on his face and asked the assistant if she could explain the policy. "It's simple," she said, her piercings glinting in the light. "We've noticed that when customers point at our products, it can lead to confusion. Sometimes they point at the wrong thing, or they get the price wrong. It's easier for everyone if they just look at the menu and order that way." James nodded, understanding the logic behind the rule. "But what about when I pointed at the croissant display?" he asked. "Why did that count as pointing?" The assistant smiled for the first time since James had entered the shop. "Ah, well, that's a bit of a special case. You see, when customers point at our products, it's like they're trying to physically reach out and touch them. It's a primal urge, you know? But when you pointed at the display case, it was more like you were indicating what you wanted. It was a more civilized way of ordering." James chuckled, feeling a bit silly for having overthought the situation. "I see what you mean," he said. "So, no pointing at the products, but it's okay to point at the display case." The assistant nodded. "Exactly. And remember, no pointing at the baker's behind either. He gets flustered easily." James burst out laughing and nodded in gratitude for the explanation. From then on, whenever he entered the bakery, he made sure to order in a civilized manner, looking at the menu and indicating his choices with a polite wave of his hand. And he never forgot to thank the baker for his delicious pastries. No pointing necessary. As the days went by, James noticed that the bakery was becoming more popular, with more and more customers coming in to sample the delicious treats. The line stretched out the door with people patiently waiting for their turn to order. But despite the crowds, the bakery remained a peaceful oasis, with the shop assistant and the baker working together to create a welcoming atmosphere for all. And James, well, he was happy to be a part of it all, enjoying his croissants and the strange but endearing rules of the bakery. He even started to notice the little details that made the shop special, the way the light streamed through the window and illuminated the display case, the sound of the baker's laughter as he worked, the smell of freshly baked bread that filled the air. In the end, James realized that the bakery's peculiar rules were not just about avoiding confusion, but about creating a unique and enjoyable experience for all customers. And he was grateful to be a part of it all, even if it meant bending the rules a bit to get his croissant. Why did James feel taken aback when the shop assistant told him not to point at the products? James felt taken aback because he had unknowingly violated an unspoken rule by pointing at the display case. What was the reason behind the bakery's policy of not allowing customers to point at their products? The bakery's policy was designed to avoid confusion among customers and to create a more civilized atmosphere in the shop. What did the shop assistant mean when she said that pointing at the products was a primal urge? The shop assistant was suggesting that pointing at the products was a natural and instinctive gesture, but it could also be seen as uncivilized or rude. Why did James burst out laughing when the shop assistant explained the reason behind the rule? James burst out laughing because he finally understood the reasoning behind the rule, and he found the explanation amusing. What did James realize about the bakery's rules and atmosphere after visiting the shop several times? James realized that the bakery's rules and atmosphere were not just about avoiding confusion, but also about creating a unique and enjoyable experience for all customers.